Hello, we are back again, folks, to take another look at the world of EA. I'm joined by Konstantinos, and
Hello, guys.
we're going to be diving in and taking a look at Riismark and a bit of the history of the province or kingdom as it is now. So it's
Well,
great to have you here
in
once again.
shambles. Great to be here. Thanks for having me again. It's always a pleasure.
Interesting little area that's sort of grown up over time to become theoretically one kingdom, but the Spotlight itself talks about how it was founded as sort of many thrones within an area and everybody carving out their own little principality. So yeah, interesting that they cling to one historical sort of precedent. We are the descended from the River King and from his 11 children. But then other people are going, well, maybe Riismark is from the Rus, and then maybe it's from Rhys, and then it's a derivation of that. And it shows that even within an area, history is a mutable thing and difficult to tie down.
I think that the mythology and the mythos of the River King was essential in a way to create an identity. If we explore other provinces and other areas, Riismark is special. Let me put it this way. Riismark is kind of special in the sense that there is a very strong sense of identity or common identity among its people. This is not unique, but it is very strong in Riismark, and it is one of the reasons we decided to start our narrative from there, because it's a more familiar feeling for a narrative, and it creates immediately kind of the sense of it reflects a little the 100 Kingdoms, that we're all different things, but there is that common root. Riismark is kind of a microcosm of that, a micro reflection of the 100 Kingdoms in that sense, I guess. Their unique geographical position forced their leaders to rely on a very strong unity, pressured by the 100 Kingdoms, pressured by the Rus, pressured by the Polmag, pressured by the Nords. This has created a very strong people, and strong people in the 100 Kingdoms and in general in our world tend to be very militaristic. Militaries need their heroes, thus the River King.
Makes sense. It's fascinating that they have, like you said, it is like a macrocosm, a little miniature version of the 100 Kingdoms that it borders or became subsumed by, where you have these areas and then they were all very defined. But that militarism came because of, I suppose, the need for trade, the need to establish commerce, and then obviously the wealth that they produced from the various minerals within their areas. And so they were all bound together as much by a need to trade independently, but also to protect their wealth. And then the military grew out of that.
Yeah. I think it's a very common story in human history. Nobody cares about a place with swamps. Even if their people become hardened by it and find a way not only to survive, but to actually make a profit, with, as is the case with the Rhys, in the case of Riismark. But then all of a sudden, when they find good, strong iron, everybody wants a piece of Riismark. They don't care about the swamps. The swamps are lovely at this time of year. It doesn't matter where it's damp. It's good for the skin.
Being bitten by flies all the time. It's I mean, it's part and parcel. It's pulls out the excess humors. I think that's how that works.
So that is kind of that is the history of Riismark, and it is a testament to their people that they manage not only to survive but to thrive. This also explains a little recent or semi-recent events in the living world, why they were so ready. Yes, of course, what Frederick did in the conclave turned the tables against Riismark, and what he did later on through the choices of the players, I might add. changed how readily they were willing to let him do his thing, because he stirred things up a lot. He took titles from nobles and gave them to people that had supported him, and that immediately tipped off everyone as a dangerous precedent. But in this spotlight, we see where the core of this readiness to be aggressive towards Frederick and Riismark comes from, and it's lasting after their minerals. So the moment they sense weakness, they allowed Riismark to be invaded by Nords, by the Dwegum, have Nepenthe do its thing, have the Rus press its borders. Everyone wants a piece of Riismark for these reasons. And I think it's important that we see through this spotlight, not only that there are other reasons than we have seen, like theological or religious or conclave and political conclave reasons for all this aggression, that deep down there is the will to take or their desire rather to take the iron from Riismark and to control the iron. And at the same time, though, we see how these people, which by all accounts should have been by now should be subsumed by stronger kingdoms or surrounding kingdoms, they have not. They have rallied behind one man, or more or less, not all of them, of course. It's not a set thing. It's not like the whole province has indeed become a one kingdom, even though Frederick and his supporters like to present it that way. But we have seen that they have endured. They had the backbone to endure and the strength to fight back, as they are doing now. They are a cunning people and a strong people, and that's a very strong combination. Frederick reflects that, but he also has his flaws, as some people might have noticed so far. So I think it's an interesting, and it's, I think, the first area of the world where we have an almost complete picture of what's going on.
Yeah.
And from where we came and where we've been led. But it is also a reflection of what has happened elsewhere in the 100 Kingdoms, that people like pioneers tried to settle an inhospitable place and made the best out of it. It's a reflection of humanity itself, in a way.
Yeah, I really like the fact that it's gone into more of the history of the country or province, whatever you want, kingdom, put together, because it starts to draw more lines into that map. So you're going, okay, well, it's swampy land, and then you're going, well, the rivers, they've got these very defined chained customs checkpoints between them, and as you drill down, not only does it make the world sort of richer, but also then it adds layers to when you're getting into gameplay and you're thinking, well, I could build a little Riismark board. I could have these areas that are carved off for whatever reason. I quite like that as well. Also gives the opportunity then to sort of expand into theming your army list as well. Because exactly. I like the idea of the elite guard, the household, being there with the Riismark steel, shining, polished, bright, ready for the fray, or maybe down in the mud, trekking through the swamp up to their knees.
Little mosquitoes around.
Yeah, mosquitoes around them.
No, I agree. And it is one of the reasons, if not the primary reason, really, that we do those kind of spotlights, and that the spotlight started from this, in fact, into specific areas, whether those are whole provinces or specific kingdoms, or they're Dwegum holds, or we will eventually start exploring some spires, individual spires, exactly to kind of give the option for people who want that kind of guidance, because not everybody wants it. People sure. prefer to do their own thing, and we've made sure that the world has enough space for them to do that.
Yeah, there's plenty of room out there for people to stretch their arms and explore to their heart's content.
And here's the trick, that when people think of the kingdoms in Riismark, they might get this idea of huge cities, which is not really true for most of them. As with most of the kingdoms in the 100 Kingdoms, a kingdom is essentially a castle with a small village around it, and the areas around it and being controlled by the king, lord of the castle. There are, of course, exceptions because there are huge metropolises that dominate the landscape and dominate also the political landscape around them, one way or the other. So when you think of a kingdom, you don't need to think, I want a kingdom with huge towers and everything. Those are kind of specific in the world,
Sure.
in a way, but there are so many castles and smaller kingdoms, but kingdoms nonetheless, for all intents and purposes, that are out there that we won't ever explore, if I'm honest. I don't think we will explore the whole world because it would leave so much unexplored if we focused just on that.
Sure.
And we don't want to, in the sense that we want to see players' ideas. We want the small kingdoms. We want the weird castle that is built against the cliff rather than on top of it for whatever reason. And I don't know, whatever else people think.
Yeah. And well, that's it. The idea that a kingdom is an area that is mutable. The range, the strength of the king or whoever's controlling it waxes and wanes, and therefore their borders may extend or contract over time. So you're not dealing with fixed points on a map. And I'm sure within even the 11 Steel Thrones, their alliance, that there'll be times where borders are shifting within them as somebody maybe stretching or pushing their lock for taking over the sort of title of the River King in the future.
It's one of the reasons why we don't really outline where do kingdoms' influences end, but we go with the provinces, because the provinces were very clearly defined during the Telian Empire, and they represent kind of wider cultural groups. So they have significance, but they are not really as defining as everything else. It doesn't matter who controls Brandengrad, which king or which neighboring kingdom, possibly. It is still part of the Riismark province, and that is kind of the important part as far as the conclave is concerned, in terms of political terms. They have also kind of lost their meaning, but they also kind of haven't. Like, they are not as important as they used to be, where the will of the emperor was specific and expressed in different ways in different provinces. But that remnant remains, and it's very politically important in the sense that usually trade tariffs and trade laws are governed from province to province, and then from kingdom to kingdom, more specifically. But that is why we insist on the provinces that don't really hold any significance. In a way, well, they do, but not when it comes to borders, as you said it, like who controls what. They hold significance in the cultural groups that they contain in, and some political powers that are active in the area. The kingdoms, as you said, are shifting quite a bit all the time. And they shift not only through war, because yes, of course, war is a primary example, but because of kind of the pressures of the conclave that it might not be as often anymore. They also shift because of alliances, marriages. I give you that field and that village because your son married my daughter. Yeah. It's the dowry. So that passes to the other kingdom. Next generation, it goes back and forth, for instance. So there's not much point in outlining those.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff, and for such a little tiny chunk of time in a tiny area across the whole world, it really sort of helps define the people and how they've established themselves. So it's definitely worth checking out if people are interested in seeing where Riismark came from, and then it's up to them to see where it goes in the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you once again, Konstantinos.
Thank you for having me.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.